Okay, so this is production-ready Kubernetes and Habitat in 40 minutes. I'll just run down the agenda real quick. We're going to talk about and create AKS, Azure Kubernetes Service. Then talk a little bit about ACR, Azure Container Registry. Then obviously we need an app to go forth and deploy, which will use Habitat and GitHub. Then we'll work the Habitat integration with ACR, and then the actual Habitat operator. All right. So kind of a quick show of hands. How many of you use Azure? Okay, well, that's good. I like this side a lot better than this side, let me tell you. All right. How many of you are actually using Kubernetes in production right now? Okay, that's good. And how many are using AKS or ACS if you're doing that? Okay, well, that's good. So this should be somewhat familiar with you. For those that aren't aren't familiar, we'll walk through it a little bit. So a quick overview of AKS. Basically, it's ACS or AKS. It's our Container Service 2.0. All right. On our previous service, it was you control everything. You manage everything. You manage the nodes. The underlying host. You manage the patching, and so on. With AKS, it is completely managed for you. Any of the underlying hosts, we handle the patching for, and you get the master for free. Okay, so a little bit of cost savings there. Depending on how big you are, it could be a huge cost savings. But a lot of what customers like about it is that as you go into the container space and the kind of development workflow that involves containers, you're going to wind up managing all these VMs, and it's just it turns into a nightmare from that perspective. And a lot of the customers that I speak to, they're like, we just want to get out of that business completely. And so rolling directly into AKS really helps suit them to a T. Real quick notes on how you create it, and we'll walk through this specifically, but there's a couple different ways you can do it. Most everybody here is probably in that scripting kind of mindset, so I'd recommend that you use the Azure command line. And so real quick there, it's AZ AKS create, and then G, your resource group. Obviously you need a resource group first, but go through and create it. Then AZ AKS install CLI, and that will, if you don't have kubectl installed right there, it'll bring it down for you. Then you run a get credentials, and that'll bring that down to your current context. Okay, then you can run all your stock commands: get nodes, hey, get pods, etc. You can upgrade it, you can scale it. Some of the upcoming features will be actual auto scaling of the infra. In other words, you'll be able to auto scale the infrastructure that's behind it. Right now you can use Kubernetes to application level scale it, but some of those features are coming up shortly. So what we'll do right now, we'll hop over and I'm going to pop this over right quick and create a cluster for you guys. Let me pull this up right quick. Bear with me. And I'll make this bigger for you guys, if you can see that. Is that legible for everybody? Good enough? All right, so the first thing we need to do is create a group. And luckily, whoops. Whoa, pardon me. And we'll give this a different name. Let's say live chef demo. I've obviously tried a lot of these today. We're going to put it in East US. Want to make it bigger? There we go. All right, so there we go. So we've got a group, and now we're going to say AZ AKS create. And we can call this, actually, let me just make sure I got the groups right quick. I want to make sure that I got the list. There we go. There we go. So I'm going to grab that group name and say AZ. And so I will go back here and change this to that. Lesser known spelling there. Okay, and so I'm just going to walk you through some of this very quick as far as, I'm going to make this a little smaller so we can actually see this. Okay. So I'm giving it the version. I can optionally throw in here the node count. I can make it 3, 10, whatever I want to do here. Or I can give it a VM size if you wanted to, all right? And so this is with the portal, or this is with the command line, and I'll go ahead and run that. I'm saying no wait there so that it doesn't just sit there at the command prompt, all right? So I'm going to have to, we'll come back to this, but next up I'm just going to show you how to do it with the portal as well. And so if I want to create that right quick, I'm going to pull this over for you guys. All right. I can say and so what this does here, okay, obviously you can it's a little more detailed, whereas the CLI kind of cleans a lot of that up for you. As far as the service principal, the CLI creates that service principal for you. All right, and I will zoom this in because this isn't very clean here. All right, but obviously you can you're going to be able to choose use an existing resource group, okay, whatever that may be. All right, give it a cluster name, choose the region that you want to put it in, etc. All the different versions, which we support anything that's upstream Kubernetes, so it'll be anything that's out there. All right, you can give it a DNS name prefix, whatever you want to do with that, and then it'll create a default service principal for you. And so, an interesting note here, yeah, this is a great little thing that I had heard about because Scott Gu loves sliders. You needed that slider in there so that you could scale it out as much as you wanted to on that front. But then, so if we go through here, I'm going to use the existing one and just use mine and put this in East and name it test cluster and call it Joey's Schluchter. Let's see if I can spell my name. All right. Okay. Give it that. We'll give it 5 nodes. And here's where you can choose. You can change the size if you wanted to. I don't want to bog that down. But the really cool thing here is as far as the networking. This is relatively new. Okay, where you can deploy to your own VNet. All right, or to an existing VNet. And so basically, it'll allow you to communicate with other resources that are on the same VNet as yours without peering specifically, okay? Anybody that uses Azure a lot or uses AKS a bunch knows that this is kind of a big deal. So this is one way to do it as well. You don't have to necessarily use that custom networking. You can just deploy it and it'll create your own VNet for you. All right, so moving back along, kind of sticking back into our slides. So our cluster is creating right now. All right, so now we've got a cluster. We've done that. Now we need a registry. All right, how many of you actually have container registries or Docker trusted registries right now? I imagine everybody that uses that. How many of you use Azure Container Registry? Is that just one? Nobody? Wow. Okay. So for all the people that were using Kubernetes, how are you? You know, I guess I assume you have some kind of container registry. So basically, with ACR, it's basically the ability to manage a Docker registry as a first-class Azure resource. All right. The registry automatically replicates your container images to multiple geographic regions, preventing loss in case of a storage failure. And then there's no limits on repos, images, layers, tags, and I think that the storage limit on standard is 5 terabytes, but I'm pretty sure that's going to bump up from there. All right, and to create it, same thing along. You're going to want to script it, or I'll show you in the portal in a second. Hey, AZ ACR create your resource group, your registry name, standard, etc. You can list it out, etc. Then hey, I want to go in there and update for admin enabled. You know, where you can give it a username and password. And then hey, list the repositories. There's many more commands that you could run on this, but this is how you list them all out. All right, and so let's go forth and create one real quick. And because we did that in the portal before, let's go ahead and create one here. And yes, I don't want to stay here. We already got a cluster, and so we can say container registry. Let's say create, real simple, and we'll call this live at Chef. If that's not taken, we can say use existing, and we're going to say Schluchter per se. You can put this wherever you want it to, East US, etc. Enable that, and you can look at all the different options for the SKUs and everything like that, but standard is fine for most of the things that you're wanting to do. All right, we can say create. So that's out there creating. But I guess what you guys really want to, hey, how do we have an app? You know, and I just really wanted to show you real quick what the typical flow is that you would want to have, whether it be with Docker or Azure Container Registry. What do you guys source control? I'm assuming GitHub, Bitbucket, GitLab, that type of thing. You're all using one of some sort, VSTS maybe. You know, you're checking changes. It's a typical kind of workflow. You check changes in, committed to that branch. Builder kind of looks at that, checks it out, looks at your plan file, which we'll get into in a second. Then it will automatically build your image and push it up to your container registry. Obviously here this is a Docker Hub or Docker Trusted Registry, but in this scenario we're going to do it directly to Azure Container Registry. And then then from there, hey, you know, what are we going to do? We're going to push it out somewhere. We're going to push it to Kubernetes, or you know, wherever that may be. In this case, it's going to be Kubernetes, but in other instances, you could have it running on app service or your own Docker Swarm, that type of thing. All right, so let's go ahead and take a peek real quick at how we would do that. I'm going to switch back over here. So I've got, I'll pull this over right quick. And this is really not a good theme, is it? And so I'm going to, well, right before this, she made me change the color theme. So I'm going to make this, let's go with that. Is that better? And I'll zoom in a wee bit. There we go. All right. So in our app, all right, we've got your stock API, a database, and a front-end website. So the web communicates with the front end, et cetera. I won't bore you with the details. It's everything we've all seen before. All right. But in this instance, I've already got Habitat set up, but I'll walk you through what's actually going on here. All right, and how to install, the Habitat CLI. So let me pull this back here. All right. So, and actually I might change the theme on this, but basically once you can do a brew install for the Habitat CLI, and once you've got that, I won't bore the details because it does take a long time on that. But once you've got that installed, I'm here in the root of the app right now, okay? And so I'm gonna cd app and then API. All right, and I can say hab studio enter, and what that brings up is that's the Habitat Studio. So you can go ahead and build everything out. What it's actually looking at are some of those configuration files that we've got over here. Let me pull this back up in our Habitat folder, which is the plan. Right, and so I'm telling it, hey, the package name is API, the package origin is ChefConf demo, et cetera, and it's taking up, when you do a hab init, it'll bring up these, stock scaffolding. There's a bunch of configuration options you can do here, but I just took the stock one, modified some of my package JSON so that it would so that it would be able to deploy correctly, and then went ahead and, as I switch back here, you can do hab build inside there, and so it will go through and build out that container image for you, and then you can then check it into GitHub from there. All right, if you wanted to, or push it directly from there. But what we want to do is we want to leverage Builder out on the website. So if we're out there, let me bring that up real quick. All right, and actually I've got that over here already, kind of pre-baked cooking show style. All right. All right, and I'll bring up my origins. Okay, and so normally when you create an origin, you're going to say, hey, I want public or private. In other words, I want public ones so others can potentially see it, that type of thing. We can go through and create one here. Chef new demo. All right, create that. And you can connect a plan file. So I've already hooked myself up to GitHub, all right? And I'll just click on that and let you see that specifically. It's already hooked up to my GitHub, all right? So there's no reason to walk through it, but basically it's in a WAF process, it connects up, and it's building webhooks behind the scenes, all right? So I'm gonna choose my organization. Obviously I have a ton of these that are going on here. And let's take a look right quick, and I'm going to choose Chef Demo, and then I want the plan file, and so specifically it's under App, API, Habitat, and so hey, it finds the plan file, and then hey, I want to publish to my container registries specifically. All right. So I can save the connection here if I wanted to. All right. And then go back here. Whoops. on my origins here. Let me go back to that and grab the integration. And now I want to add my Azure Container Registry. I've created that. I want to add it in there. So in other words, I'm telling you, when I check something in here and it, you know, for that specific that specific app, I want to tie it to my Azure Container Registry specifically. And when it actually does that, there we go. Okay, so right here it says, hey, what's the integration name? So you're going to say whatever it may be. All right, just name it whatever you want to. The server URL. Well, we went over here, we created that container registry. All right. So let me close that down. Okay, so that's it right there. So live at Chef. All right. So it's going to be live at chef.azure.cr.io. Okay. And then we'll just call this Azure Live at Chef. Okay. Now this is where it gets interesting. You're going to need to create a service principal to allow this to push, basically allow Builder to push that image that it builds out to Azure. All right. And so, lucky for you guys, I have some commands here that are already pre-baked. All right. And so right here is what we're going to do. And we're going to go ahead and run that. And so let's go back here and we'll find out the resource group. Plug this in. Nothing like live coding. All right. Plug this in. All right. ACR name will be live at Chef. Principal name is live at Chef. All right. And then a lot stronger password. There we go. So I can then take this, grab it, and let's switch over to our, we'll exit this. And I can just, because I have the AZ command line already hooked up here, I'm going to clear this. All right, I can either paste that, but actually in that, did I save that? Let me make sure that, okay, I saved it. So I can do, oh, that's not good. 1 second. That is, my bad. In the right folder here. Oh yeah, I gotta go one up, my bad. Two up. Oh. So while that pontificates, what it's going to do, it's going to create the service principal, and then you're going to take that, make sure that it can talk to that, and then we're going to grab that information and paste it in there. All right, and so if we switch back over to our what it's asking for here, all right, service principal ID. We can just grab that. I'm sure everybody's taking my service principal and writing it down right now actively. Okay. Not now. I want it to stop for certain things. Okay, so we've done that. Now what do we do? All right. So it's hooked up to GitHub. We've got our container registry. Now we need to go back and make sure that it, you know, that on a check-in it's doing some builds and everything like that. So cooking show again. I'm going to show you the API. I've obviously done a few builds here today, but let's pretend that we changed something out there because this does take some time for the hook, so I'm going to just go ahead and force it out there and let you kind of see what's actually going on specifically. All right, so it's going and looking at looking at the code, going through and pulling everything that it does, building that Docker image along with those specific settings that I've passed in, which you can configure. I won't bore you with the details of that, but basically in my API, I've got some config here. Hey, I want to run it. I want the node environment to be development, and then I want the port to run on 3000. Typical API, I just wanted to access that on 3000 specifically. All right, so we'll let that go ahead and roll through there. While it's doing that specifically, all right, we're going to go ahead and take a look at our current repositories that are out there, and I've used this other one specifically, the Chef Conference one that's out there. All right, and we're going to look at our repositories that are out there. And so this one was built a little earlier today. You're going to see other ones that fly in here. So it's going to be pushing all these images as you do that. As you can imagine, once you're going to see a steady stream. All right, a lot of the configuration options that you have in here specifically, when you configure those settings, yeah, that's getting really long, but what you can do once that's in there, and I'll show you that specifically. You can choose, hey, just push the latest, all right, or give it a custom tag, give it all those different things, the package version, release, that type of thing. There's a lot of nifty settings that you can do within that, all right. But let's take a look and see how that's actually gone right now, and it is still going. That's okay. It should be almost done. This is actually, let me see right quick. Yeah. Yep, so it is actually done. So if we go back here and take a look. Oh, I don't know why that's not saying it's done, but trust me, it's done. Yeah, it's done. All right, so now, I'm trying to find my cursor here. Yeah, so we've got it built. You know, our image is out there. You know, what do we do with this image? How does it actually work? It's out there. I have my cluster. I have my container image. I've checked in code. It's all built and everything like that. What's going to happen there is now we have to go and install the Habitat operator out on our cluster. All right. It's actually pretty simple. There's a bunch of examples out there, but I have a predefined script for you. You want to have this so that it's running, and it will actually allow. This is in. You know, this isn't showing a cloud deployment necessarily, whereas the master in Azure you wouldn't actually see, but you're going to install this into your cluster, and then it's going to manage kind of looking back at your container registry and then pull stuff in and allow that to come in. It's kind of like the police specifically, all right, along those lines. All right, and let's run out of time. I will go through and show you exactly what's going on here. Let's just make sure that our cluster is built. We'll do that. Okay, so the cluster's built right there. All right, so I'm going to now go and get the keys real quick. So I'm going to say AZ, AKS, get credentials, and let's just grab our resource group name, live chef demo. All right. There we go. So now we can say kubectl, get nodes. There we go. So we've got 3 nodes out there. Now we need to quickly install our operator. And so real quick, so that is this right here. Basically, it's out on GitHub if you guys want to grab that specifically. But basically, it's going to install this from a trusted Docker image that's already out there. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and switch back over to that right quick. Okay. Let me say. Okay, so it's out there and running right now. All right, all good. Now, what can we do to get this thing, so that it communicates with our container registry? All right, I have a deployment script already, as you can imagine, built out. All right, and so we'll switch back to that real quick. And it is right here. So it's got my API. It's got a Cosmos DB secret. I won't bore you with the details, but it's leveraging Habitat specifically. So Habitat will control whether or not it's coming in. All right. So let's walk over to that right quick. And so I will. There we go. So it's created my API, all that's up. It's going to take a few seconds to kind of to build that specifically. All right. But in the interest of cooking show dynamics, we've already got it built out because I can hear everybody else talking about it. And what it winds up happening is it's going to pull, and I'll show that right quick. 1 second. And you're going to have a website, everything that's along those lines. And this is a project that we did. So behind the scenes, this is in a cluster in Azure, all deployed from that specifically. All right. So I did the API just as an example. So in that other cluster, it's up there. But in this one, it's actually live. Being deployed. If I were to change code in my other repo, we would deploy it out there. If I were to, one other tidbit real quick. So in your origins, I just want to cover this. In order for it to actually deploy to production and everything like that, what you want to do is, you can't see this real well, but you want to promote that to stable, all right? So that you can then deploy it. Otherwise, it'll just be like, yeah, I'm not gonna deploy that. All right, and so any questions? I just want to save time for questions along those lines. There was a lot to cover, a lot going on, a lot of moving parts and everything like that. It really should be 45 minutes because we've got 5 minutes here and there's probably 10 minutes of content left. Questions specifically? Anyone?
Oh, I just got my question answered by the person walking up with the mic. Was whether or not this was recorded and whatnot, because for those of us in the back who are a little harder of seeing, so.
Yeah, there will be, and what I'll do is I'll publish this out to GitHub. It's already technically it's already out there, and you can see all the steps that I've got. It's GitHub.
Awesome, thank you.
I'll get you the exact address specifically. It's GitHub, Schluchter. And there it is, it's Chef Demo. And you'll be able to see all these different, everything that's in there. It'll walk you through exactly what you need to do.
Just got a question about, can we run the Habitat server as a container in Kubernetes?
Yeah, I'm not, I'd have to get back to you on that, but right now it's running Habitat specifically in there, just the operator and the updater. So I'm not positive that you can. I don't see why not.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you.
I was real curious, what can you share about the builder that is inside of Habitat? So I've seen in a couple of other demos where it looks like it's got like the equivalent of a Maven plugin. And how would you compare the builder inside of Habitat to, say, Jenkins?
I don't know what the internals specifically are of that, but inside of, if we switch back over to that command line specifically, if I run through that, let me just zoom out a little bit here. If I say Hab Studio, enter. Okay. It's going to give you, I don't know what's, I haven't dug into the internals specifically of it, but it's going to give you the option of what you choose to build with. I'm assuming it's going to use different build agents for different code bases. That's just my guess. All right, just like Jenkins does. You can choose different, kind of slaves or agents, workers, whatever you want to call them these days, to build that. I'm not positive. So it's really up. It kind of does all that, kind of the wiring for you, and decides that based on the package that you've got. So.
Quick question. In the intro, I saw that you were a member of a black belt community in there. Can you explain a little bit what's the black belt about?
So that's actually, I don't actually own I have a white belt actually. So, but no, that's our team name. So our Intelligent Cloud Black Belt team, there's another member in the very back. He's trying to hide, but I can see him from here. But basically that's, in the normal Microsoft infra, there's CSAs, which are kind of, hey, on the front lines, and then we're kind of a step above that, specifically in kind of hired assassins, I guess you could say. So, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can we give Joey a round of applause?
Thanks, guys.